Asked 100 Americans what the subjunctive is, they'll probably tell you it's similar to Ebola. It's a disease, isn't it? No one knows, man, unless you're learning English. And you need to understand the function of the verb in a certain situation. Okay, listen. It only happens when you have an independent clause followed by a noun clause. Okay? And it all depends on this verb right here. So the verb in the independent clause has to be expressing urgency. You know what that means, right? Urgency. It means it's urgent. It needs to happen now. Okay? Obligation. You know what obligation is, right? You need to do it.
Yeah.
Like a command almost. It's necessary. Absolutely necessary. Or?
Advisability.
Advisability. You know what? When I give you advice, right? So if I'm advising you to do something, kind of close to this, but a little bit different. So when this verb in the main clause expresses urgency, obligation, or advisability, something really weird happens if there's a noun clause following it. Of course, you have your subject, and then the verb. It's always in the base form. It's really weird. The verb is always in the base form when this happens. So, let's take a look at an example. Again, just for review, let's have Mohammed read this. I just said it. Read it again just to stick it in our head a little further. The subjunctive form.
The subjective form is a verb is used in noun clause following verb or adjectives or urgency. Of urgency, of obligation, or advisability.
Advisability. Yep.
The subjective form is always the same as the base form, no matter what the time frame.
Yeah. So, hey, one thing I should add here, also adjectives, okay, that do one of these things. So, you might have an adjective on the end and then the noun clause. If the adjective is kind of an urgency idea, obligation or advisability, it does the same thing, okay, to the verb over here. So, let's just look at some examples. Let's put one on the board. So, if I say something like, I like this. The doctor suggested she exercise more and not work on weekends. Alright, so where's the verb in the main clause? First of all, where's the main clause?
Doctor.
Yeah. So you got your the doctor suggested. So you have where's your subject?
The doctor.
And the verb?
Suggested.
Now listen, we really want to focus on this verb because this is what triggers this. Okay? Which one of these is it?
Urgency.
So he's giving her advice, right? So, we have the independent clause and we have a verb that's offering advice. And now we've got a noun clause. And really, what's the subject of the noun clause?
Exercise.
The subject.
She.
And the verb?
Exercise.
And?
Work.
On the weekend. So, this is the effect, and this is what the subjunctive mood is. When this situation happens, what tense is the verb? It's base form? Base form. Does everybody know how to find the base form easily? It's also called the
infinitive.
The zero infinitive. So if you attach the to the verb and then get rid of the to, that's how you can find the base form of any verb. So, for example, goes. I say to go. Get rid of the to. The go is the base form. So What tense is this?
Adjective.
What tense?
Past.
It's past. So this is what's weird. It's the main clause is in the past tense, but then this subjunctive thing going on throws these into the base form. Always. That's it. I mean, that's how it works. Look at another example. Well, they give you the wrong way to do it. Let's see. Let's have Meadow read the not.
Now the doctor suggests she exercises more and doesn't work on weekends.
Yeah. So, yeah, they just put the verb tense. They used a different verb tense, not the base form, and they're saying that's wrong. Okay. Let's see. Let's have Ryan read the next example. It is.
It's important to you. It's important that you be aware of the sources of stress in your life.
Okay, so now this is interesting. Remember, whenever you have a subject, be verb like is, it's often followed by an adjective, isn't it? And in this one it says, it is important. Which one of these?
Second.
Obligation?
First one.
Yeah, I would probably go with urgency. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could argue it probably all three ways, but okay. The point is the verb or the adjective. What's the adjective? It is important.
Important.
So important here expresses the idea of urgency, obligation, or advisability. And notice the noun clause. It is important that you be. It stays in the base form. To be. Aware of the sources of stress in your life. You would not say, and you would think, it is important that you, like normally with a you subject you put are, but not here. You use be. You got to use the base form because of this situation. Is everybody okay? You understand? It's not a hard thing. It's just a really weird thing. And if you're not aware of it, it can cause a real problem. The other thing is be careful that it's a noun clause. Do you know how to tell if it's a noun clause or an adjective clause? Following the main clause? What? Well, an adjective clause has a subject and verb, so does a noun clause. How do I know the difference?
Preposition? No.
Not necessarily. How do I know if I'm looking at a noun clause? Because, adjective clauses start with that.
There is no
Well, that's one clue, but sometimes adjective clauses don't have a comma. It is true that adjective clauses where you're just adding extra information, right? Like Barack Obama, the President of the United States, you put commas around that, is in Washington, D.C. today. But no, that's not. Sometimes an adjective clause doesn't get commas either. It's all about identifying what it's doing.
Even if I put that or which.
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask yourself, what is the adjective clause doing in the sentence? Is it important to the meaning of the sentence, or is it just extra information? So that's not going to help us. You need to ask yourself, what is the clause doing in the sentence? If it's acting like a noun, guess what? It's a noun clause. If it's describing a noun, it's an adjective clause. So all of these are acting like what? In the sentence, it's acting like, look at the first one.
Noun describe.
Yeah. It's answering the question. The doctor suggested she exercise. Suggested what? Hey, listen. Yeah. If you ask what after the verb in any sentence, the action verb, the answer to the what is always the object of the sentence. So the doctor suggested what? She exercised more and not work on weekends. So that's a noun clause acting like a... It's a noun clause acting like a noun clause. I mean, Is it acting like a noun, a subject, a verb, or an object? In that sentence? An object. Yeah. So is the second one. It is important what? That you be aware of the source of stress in your life. So that's acting like an object. Are you with me? That's how you tell the difference. Okay. Look at the last part. It says, give it to me. When, Nora, can you read that? When the verb?
When the verb in the noun clause is in the passive voice, the subjunctive form is be plus past participle.
There you go. Did everybody understand passive? What do I have to have the passive?
What do you call it?
What two things? I need
Be,
the be verb
be verb,
and,
past
and a past participle.
participle.
So all it's saying is whenever the verb in the noun clause is passive, it says always use be, which is weird, right? So even if it's past passive, don't use was or were, always keep it be plus the past participle. If the verb in the noun clause is passive. You okay? Look at the example. Caesar, read the example.
Psychologists recommend we be trained to cope with stress.
Yep. So what's the main verb in the main clause?
Recommend.
Recommend. So which one of these is it?
Advice.
Yeah. So it's an advisability verb, and then in the noun clause it's passive, so they put what verb?
Be.
Be, past participle, train. Everybody okay? You seeing that? Again, not hard as long as you know what's going on. And then this is nice over here. If you want to create these kinds of sentences, it gives you different verbs or adjectives that you can use that will trigger a subjunctive in the noun clause. Okay? Remember, noun clauses following verbs and adjectives that don't express urgency, obligation, or advisability don't need the subjunctive. It only happens in these three situations with these kinds of verbs. Otherwise, it stays, it's like a normal sentence. Are you with me?
Yes.
So the example, psychologists agree. Is agree expressing any of these? No! Look at the verbs. Psychologists agree that too much conflict is harmful to relationships. It's true that he finds his current position very demanding. Both of the verbs in the noun clauses on those are not using the zero infinitive form or base form. So that's how it works. Hey, listen. I want you to attempt to do C, okay, at home tonight for homework on page 37. Remember the other exercise I put up here as well. All right. Hey, have a nice day.